God is always giving us signs from above. Hi, this is Lucy B, and welcome to Signs from Above. Can you imagine right now just being in a dark room? I know that many of us have been in a dark room, even if it's waking up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom or whatever it may be. But walking around a room and just trying to feel your way through to get to wherever you need to be, and how hard that can be. But imagine that as your life, and that you can't turn on the light. Imagine what that is like. It's hard for us to imagine. I know that our other senses are enhanced if that were to happen. Our hearing tends to be better. Smell tends to be better. Different senses just are enhanced to make up for that one that they're lacking. Well, this story is about a woman named Mary Franco, and she was blind for more than 20 years, and she prayed to see things as they were, not just as she remembered them to be, but as the world remained dark, she was blind. But she wasn't always. Until she was 48 years old, the only problem with her vision was that she was colorblind. She could see only white, yellow, and black, with other hues muted. It sometimes made matching outfits a pain for her, but it didn't stop her from getting her LPN license and becoming an operating room nurse. She lived a good life with her husband, who was a policeman, and her 2 children, a boy and a girl. Then came that December morning in 1993, and she was driving to work in Ohio when her tires hit a patch of ice and she lost control. Her car flew off the road, crashed through a billboard, and flipped into a ditch. An MRI showed that she had perforated a spinal cord. In the operating room, she had a stroke. When she awoke, her vision was blurry, and days later, she was just completely blind. The doctors didn't have any answers for her, except the damage was likely irreversible. She had a strong faith that carried her through the depression. The months of anger followed, and eventually she decided blindness wouldn't keep her from living. She enrolled in a school for the blind that taught her how to be independent. She had to relearn everything, as she couldn't rely on sight. Her other senses were sharpened by the day. She did learn to count steps as she walked. She felt walls and railings and the sense of the vibrations from her cane against the ground. Her hands and ears became her eyes. She had to put more faith in other people, and she could still cook. She just listened to the bubbles, and it told her when the water was boiling, and kept her cupboards organized so she knew where everything was. She taught herself to paint again, pressing hard so she could feel the outline of the brush strokes. And she felt her little kitten grow into a cat, and his purr sounding richer to her now. She got bold and tried things she never would have done when she had her eyesight, such as ziplining, parasailing, and even skydiving. I might have to be blind to be skydiving. Side note. She couldn't continue her career, but her nursing skills were still sharp. So when her daughter had her baby, which was her first grandson, he was less than 2 weeks old when he went limp in her arms, and she couldn't hear him breathing. In her mind's eye, she could see him turning blue, and she performed infant CPR and revived him. She went to a support group for the blind every Wednesday and shared how hard it was to not be able to see her grandchildren. She felt their faces and held them close so she could tell them how much that they'd grown. She yearned to be able to see all the things taken for granted, even something as an ordinary sunlight. In her dreams, everything was a dazzling color. It wasn't even colorblind. But when she awoke to the same darkness day after day, she also felt like her family was slipping away. Her son died from a heart attack in 2013, and her husband died of a stroke shortly after. For once, she thought her blindness was a blessing. She didn't have to see her son's funeral or her husband sick in the hospital bed. And she never watched her husband grow old. And in her mind, he was forever 45, young, slim, and handsome. She always held out hope that one day God might restore her sight. She didn't even think it was anything deserving than anyone else to receive a miracle. She just needed that hope to cling to. So she moved to Florida to be closer to her brother. And one day, it was about 2016, that the shoe caught an uneven tile in her living room. She fell and hit the back of her neck hard. She was in pain for months. Tests revealed that it had knocked several vertebrae out of alignment and had a bone chip that needed to be removed. After what happened the last time that she had surgery, she was so nervous, frightened even though she knew God was with her. So she met the neurosurgeon and explained the side effects associated with the procedure: temporary numbing in her fingers and limited mobility during recovery. She asked, what if my remaining senses were affected? She asked the doctor if he would pray with her. He took her hands and they prayed together. I'll do my best, he promised afterwards, and leave the rest to God. The day of surgery arrived. Her pastor, his wife, and her niece Heidi came to be with her. She woke up groggy from the procedure. Her neck and upper back throbbed with pain. Maybe the surgery had failed. Maybe the prayers didn't work. Maybe. A woman in surgical scrubs stood nearby. She could see her. She wondered if she was still asleep. Lady, she called, you in the purple. Can you give me something for this pain? A young woman leaned close to her bedside. What did you say, Aunt Mary? Can you see me? Heidi! She was so beautiful. The last time that she saw her, she was 4 years old. For the first time in 22 years, no more darkness. Shapes, colors, lights, and Heidi's astonished face stood out to her in high definition. She said, I can see! She cried. I can see! Later, she couldn't stop staring out the window. Palm trees swayed in the breeze. She was up on a floor high enough to see houses and the blue water beyond, dotted with white sailboats. Only her dreams looked like this, but this was no dream. Word spread throughout the hospital. Even the attendant who brought her food asked, Are you the miracle lady? No one was more stunned than the doctor. This was a side effect of the surgery he hadn't expected. He said, I don't have a scientific explanation for it. Even if he had untangled a blood vessel that restored blood flow to the regional critical area for the site, the regional tissue would have been dead, and nothing would explain why she could see full color now. The only explanation is that God performed a miracle. Science is science and God is God, he said. So seeing again to her has been like being reborn. It is as if her eyes were hungry. She's gone to see her 9 grandchildren and 2 great-grandchildren who were all born while she was blind. So now she can actually see her pets that gave her so much comfort. And one sight she could do without, she said, is all those wrinkles. Imagine suddenly seeing yourself 2 decades older. She says sometimes when she's alone, she closes her eyes for a moment and remembers what it was like living in the dark. For all those years, praying for a miracle, keeping the faith, and then she'll open them and see God's miracle all around her. So I love this story. It's it's just praying for something and seeing God answer. So it takes me to Matthew 19:26, when he said, Jesus looked at them and said, with man, this is impossible, but with God, all things are possible. Right? So we are not home, and it will be wonderful, but we are still here and we still have work to do. So keep an eye out for the signs around you. Until our next episode, walk in the confidence that you're guided and protected with Jesus lighting your path and revealing messages along your journey.